I've never forgotten the empty look in my father's eyes that morning, when I walked into the kitchen and saw him sitting at the table, holding a cup of coffee, eyes locked on his phone like I didn't even exist. There was a kind of silence in that house that made you feel like a shadow, and I had lived in that shadow for nearly 30 years. My name is Harper Sullivan. I'm 31, a financial analyst at an investment firm in Austin, Texas. I get up at 5 a.m. every day, jog around Town Lake, then head to the gym in my basement. Breakfast is a protein smoothie, then it's a white blouse, heels, and the traffic-packed I-35. My commute to the downtown office takes nearly an hour. From the outside, people say I'm living the American dream. Beautiful house, high income, rising career. And I used to believe that too. The house I live in is a modern-style villa in Westlake Hills, nearly 3,200 square feet. I bought it 3 years ago for $795,000 after receiving my first big bonus from the company. I dreamed of a private space, natural light, a small herb garden, and somewhere safe where I could finally breathe. But that dream never materialized. Just 8 weeks after moving in, my parents, Greg and Linda Sullivan, temporarily moved in too. My father had just declared bankruptcy for the second time after his small construction company failed again. My mom called me in the middle of a meeting, her voice trembling. "Harper, your dad's falling apart. We just need a place to get back on our feet. Please, just a few months." I nodded without thinking. I was the only one in the family financially stable. I thought I was doing the right thing. I thought if I fulfilled my role as a good daughter, they'd eventually appreciate it. But a few months turned into 3 years. They never left. I pay a mortgage of $4,100 a month. I cover all the bills: electricity, water, gas, internet, cable, home insurance. I even pay for their car registration and phone plans. My dad's been looking for a job, but hasn't landed a single interview. My mom spends most of her time with her church group and community involvement, which from what I can tell means going to lunch and complaining about her back pain. I wasn't just supporting 2 adults. I was the reluctant sponsor of my younger sister, Mallory. Mallory is the kind of daughter my parents have always bragged about. She got married at 21, had 3 kids back-to-back, and lives in a 1-story home in the suburbs with her husband Ben, a small machine shop manager who inherited the place from his father. Every Wednesday night, Mallory brings the kids over for dinner at my house. My dad gets up from his chair, beams with pride, and hugs her like it's the moment he's been waiting for all week. Me. I get a nod and the usual line, "You're late again, huh?" I never complained, at least not out loud. After dinner, I'd quietly retreat to my home office, open my laptop, and try to plow through a mountain of unread emails. I'd tell myself, "You're strong, you're successful, you can handle this." But every night when the kitchen lights went out, I lay alone in that spacious room, with no laughter, no one asking if I was okay, and I began to wonder, who was really living in this house? Me or them? My best friend Nina was the only one who knew I was struggling. During a rare lunch downtown, she pushed her salad aside and stared straight at me. "Harper, they're draining you. You're the only one keeping that whole house afloat, and nobody even cares if you're breathing." I tried to smile, but it didn't come out right. "They're my family, Nina. I can't just throw them out on the street." She shook her head, voice tight with restrained frustration. "Parents may need their children, but that doesn't mean they get to bleed them dry. They're adults, Harper. They need to act like it." I didn't answer, because some part of me knew she was right. But another part, the one that grew up in a home where emotions were never a priority, just kept its head down and endured. What I didn't know was that just days later, everything I believed in would come crashing down. And from that wreckage, I'd discover something I'd never truly had in over 30 years: freedom. That Wednesday night, rain lashed against the windows like it wanted to crack the thick air in the living room. Mallory showed up again, bringing her 3 noisy kids and a large bag of store-bought muffins. They jumped on the sofa like it was theirs, and my mom happily called out to my dad, "Our sweet girl's here." I came downstairs, hair damp from a post-run shower. No one looked at me. Not a soul. My dad rose from his seat, hurried over to greet Mallory, hugged her tightly, and kissed the youngest on the forehead. "You're amazing coming out in this rain with all the kids." I watched silent. I thought I was used to the favoritism. But sometimes the way they looked at her, as if she were the only light in their lives, still stung. "You got home late?" Mallory asked as I entered the kitchen. I nodded, opening the fridge for water. Still doing that investment thing? God, I'd lose my mind with all those numbers, she chuckled, pouring herself a Coke and leaning on the counter. I'd rather be home with the kids any day. I didn't respond. Not because I had nothing to say, but because if I spoke, I might not be able to keep my voice steady. When dinner was ready, I brought out the lasagna I had baked and carefully sliced it. 2 hours of effort after work, only to hear my dad laugh and say, "Mallory, remember that creamy pasta you made last week? I'm still craving that. Would have been perfect tonight." My mom nodded, eyes never glancing at the food I placed. She's just as gifted in the kitchen as my mother was. Not like this cold store-bought stuff. I swallowed hard, sat beside my nephew who was absorbed in the iPad I got him for his birthday. No one mentioned me. No one asked how my day went. When Mallory started talking about Ben opening his own machine shop, my dad tapped the table with admiration. "Ben's got it together. Knows how to take care of his family. That's a man to be proud of." My mom chimed in. "He holds the whole family together and still keeps everything warm. Unlike some people with fancy homes and flashy cars who can't show real love." I looked at her. Didn't have to ask who she meant. I once thought if I tried hard enough, they'd see me. I once sent my mom a silver necklace with her favorite gemstones for Easter. Spent almost $1,000 on it. The next week, I found it shoved in a drawer under old dish towels. Last winter, I bought my dad a Coach leather jacket after his eye surgery. He glanced at it without a word. Weeks later, I saw it listed on Facebook Marketplace under Mallory's account. But when Mallory gave my mom a bunch of daisies from the local farmer's market, she posted a picture that same night with the caption, "A daughter's love is a mother's sweetest gift." I gradually realized, nothing I did was ever enough. Whether an elegant gift or thousands of dollars in support, it was always seen as showing off. "Are you not tired?" Mallory asked as I walked her to her car. I looked up at the rain still pouring and answered emptily, "I'm used to it." She pulled her coat tighter, eyes searching me as if looking for something off. "You handle everything. Sometimes I'm really jealous." I looked at her, didn't smile, didn't reply. Because I didn't need her jealousy. I needed acknowledgement. A look that said I too deserved love. Not only when I brought financial value, but simply because I was their daughter. That night, I went upstairs, opened my email, and saw a message from HR. "Congratulations, Harper, you've officially been nominated for Senior Project Manager. We'll discuss details in next Monday's meeting." I leaned back in the chair, silent. No one downstairs knew or cared. In that moment, in the house I had poured my youth and money into preserving, I understood. Some relationships, if they require the sacrifice of your dignity to maintain, should have been let go long ago. That Friday, I left work earlier than usual after a successful meeting with a major client from California. Relief entered my lungs as I drove through rain-slicked streets toward home. A silly thought flashed. Maybe I'll buy a bottle of white wine, make lemon chicken, and treat everyone to a celebratory dinner? I parked curbside, entered through the back door into the kitchen, still holding a box of sushi and a warm baguette. The lights were blazing, but the living room was empty. My mom was probably grocery shopping, and my dad usually spent Friday afternoons calling old clients. I was about to call out when I froze. His voice came from upstairs. His temporary office was just down the hall, the door slightly ajar. I heard my name clearly in the conversation. "That girl thinks she's so smart, but she's a total failure," my dad said, voice cold like ice water in the bones. "Greg, I swear if I could do it over, I wouldn't have let Linda keep that pregnancy." My throat froze. The man on the other end replied, "You're talking about Harper? That girl's been supporting all of you." "Yeah," my dad sneered. "She's good at making money. But what kind of life is that? Morning workouts like a robot, working herself to exhaustion late, no husband, no kids, no emotions. What good is a daughter like that?" I gripped my bag strap until my knuckles turned white, blood pounding in my temples. "Linda says staying here another year will give us enough for a down payment on an apartment near Mallory." He continued, "Just keep up the act, don't cause trouble, and Harper won't suspect a thing." A light laugh came from my mom. I didn't even know she was there. "She thinks she's in control," she whispered. "We just need to play our parts." Every morning I compliment how nice she looks, even if she's stiff as a mannequin. "Let her feel proud of her boring job at that firm," my dad responded. "As long as she keeps paying for everything." The other day I saw she ordered new gym equipment. Probably cost a few thousand more. I staggered backward toward the stairs, disoriented. Every sound in the house felt muffled, distorted, cold. I stumbled out to the car, feeling like a hollow shell, the door shutting behind me with a sharp click as if sealing shut that chapter of pride I'd built for them. I didn't go to Nina's or the office. I didn't drive anywhere meaningful. I just ran, as if fleeing an invisible fire that was burning the rest of my heart. I finally stopped in the parking lot at Target, 6 miles from home as night fell. I sat silently behind the wheel, fog on the windows, my fingers trembling as I scrolled to a familiar number. Nina answered almost immediately. "Harper, you okay? You're breathing so hard." I couldn't answer at first. After a few silent seconds I hissed, voice broken, "They hate me, Nina. They really hate me." She didn't ask why. Maybe a friend's intuition was enough to know what happened. "Come here," Nina said. "Right now. You don't have to say a thing until you're ready." I arrived at her place at 8:17 p.m. Nina opened the door still in work clothes and held me tightly. In that moment, that hug was the only thing keeping me from collapsing. After I told her everything, every word, every cold phrase, every fake laugh, I saw her sit up straight, grip my hand firmly. "They've been using you. Not just financially. They drained your trust, your youth, your worth." I nodded. Inside me came a strange feeling, not exactly pain. More like heartbreak, like glass shattering into 1,000 pieces. "From now on you owe them nothing," Nina said decisively. I lifted my head, looked at her with dry eyes. "I won't demand they apologize. I don't need their explanations. I'll just vanish quietly. As if I never existed in that house. Never existed." It wasn't pain anymore. It was liberation. I woke the next morning on Nina's couch, a stiff neck from sleeping wrong, but my mind was unusually clear. Sunlight filtered through the white curtains, lighting the clock at exactly 6:30 a.m. No shouting, no clattering pans, no one asking what I wanted for breakfast. No one, just me. Nina left a note next to a glass of orange juice. "You can sleep in if you want, but if you go out later, don't forget, only you hold the key to your life." I read that line 4 times before stepping onto the balcony. The crisp early air brushed my cheek, touched my hair, a chance untarnished by anyone else. I unlocked my phone and saw a message from my mom. "Where are you? Don't come home late. Mallory and the kids are coming tonight." No concern. No caring. I locked the phone, opened notes, and started writing. What I've done for the family over the past 3 years. Each item showed up one by one. Monthly mortgage payments, repairs for the water heater, tuition for Mallory's 2 kids when she forgot the due date. I did a rough total, close to $180,000. I used to think it was my responsibility. Now I don't. That afternoon I called the therapist Nina had recommended. "Is there any chance you could fit me in today? I need to talk to someone who knows how to help navigate this." By 3 p.m. I walked into the office of Dr. Rachel Whitmore. A woman in her 50s, sharp eyes, deep but warm voice. After I told her everything, she was silent for a moment, then gently asked, "Harper, if you removed emotion, if you used only logic, what would you do right now?" I straightened up, my chest burning. "I'd sell that house. Cut all support. Move out. Stop letting them define who I am for even one more day." "Then why haven't you?" My throat went dry. I answered honestly, "Because of guilt. Because I still want them to acknowledge me. Just once." She nodded without judgment. "But that's never happened in 31 years. So how much longer are you planning to wait?" That question needed no answer. Because I already knew the direction. Leaving her office, I didn't drive back to Nina's. I pulled into a small cafe, opened my laptop, and began drafting the plan. Bank accounts. Selling the house. Work relocation. Finding a new place to live. I opened the map and paused at one spot, Boulder, Colorado. I had traveled there for work once. Clean air, kind people, surrounded by nature. Far enough from my family for no shadow to follow. That night, Nina brought 2 glasses of wine into the living room, watching me work in silence. "Have you made your decision?" I looked up and nodded slightly. "Not to run away. To live honestly." She smiled and raised her glass. "Then here's to that. Freedom isn't just leaving a place, it's cutting off the invisible chains." I didn't say anything more. Everything that needed saying was already in motion. On screen, I hit send on an email to the real estate firm. Subject line clear: requesting urgent home sale consultation. Attached below was the ownership deed, sole name, Harper Sullivan. No co-owner, no entanglements. The next day I contacted HR. I emphasized I was considering a transfer to the Boulder office. The HR manager was surprised but supportive. "You're one of the team's top performers. If you need support during the transition, we'll do everything we can," she said over the phone. I smiled and quietly replied, "For the first time in my life, I'm doing something just because I want to." That night, I quietly returned to the old house. I didn't turn on the lights. I walked past the living room, the kitchen, up the stairs. Everything still smelled the same: fabric softener, my mom's shampoo, Mallory's cheap perfume left behind. I opened my bedroom door, pulled a suitcase from under the bed, and began packing the things that belonged to me, and only me. Each item was carefully chosen. A book I'd loved since my teens, a photo with Nina in Nashville, the running shoes I used to get through hundreds of lonely mornings. I wasn't in a rush. Every move was calculated like a strategic plan. No emotion, no hesitation. Monday morning, I took a half day off. I didn't tell my parents, didn't leave a note. I stopped by Amanda Crane's office, my financial advisor for the past 6 years. She was the first to see the plan I'd sketched in a moss green leather notebook, every page sorted by category: real estate, banking, legal, relocation. Amanda tilted her head after scanning the spreadsheet. "Harper, if this is purely financial, you could restart anywhere. But if this is emotional, I can refer you to a specialist in Boulder." I nodded, closing the notebook. "You know, I've never made a decision without thinking it through at least 3 times. She smiled and placed 2 business cards in front of me, both experienced luxury home sellers in Austin. I immediately picked the first one, Mason Briggs. I'd met him once at an investment seminar. Confident, discreet, no nonsense. At 3 p.m. that day, Mason entered through the side door, just as my dad was in the garage sorting old toolboxes. I pretended he was a colleague dropping by, showed him around to take interior photos. After inspecting the basement, he gave a slight nod and whispered, "Given the location and condition, I can list this within 72 hours. If you prefer discretion, I'll use our private client list first." I looked at him, voice steady. "Not just discretion. I need every step to be clean. No suspicion until it's all in motion." He nodded, understanding. The next morning, I sent an official email to HR requesting a transfer to the Boulder branch. That same day, the new manager from Colorado called back. "We'd be honored to have you join us as lead analyst," he said. "The relocation package is still active for internal staff." I didn't react much. I noted the details. Submitted the confirmation documents. Everything was falling into place like gears in a clock. I hired an attorney, Samantha Graves, through one of the firm's former partners. She confirmed what I had researched several times already. The house was entirely mine. No permission required from anyone currently living there. However, under Texas law, if they refused to vacate after notice, I'd need to file an official eviction request within 30 days. She was blunt. "But if they don't know until after the sale is finalized, the risk is much lower. I suggest you prep the documents carefully. That way, if anything goes to court, you'll have solid legal ground." I gave a faint smile. "I'm not waiting for their permission. I just need them out of the way." 2 weeks later, everything was ready. Property transfer documents finalized. I opened a new bank account in Colorado. Mailing address, health insurance, personal IDs. All separated from anything my parents ever had access to. I kept only one old debit card to avoid raising suspicion with everyday purchases. Day 16, Mason texted, "There are 3 potential investors. One is offering full cash up front. If you're ready to close, I'll have the for sale sign installed this Saturday. Just need your confirmation." I stared at the message on my phone while my dad sat a few yards away in the backyard, lighting a cigarette, his gaze drifting as usual. My mom was on the phone with Mallory, complaining that the fridge shakes a little too much when opened. I replied simply, "Put the sign up. I'm ready." Saturday morning, while Mom went to the supermarket and Dad drove to his favorite coffee shop, I called Mason and gave the go-ahead for his team to install the sign. It was large, white background, bold black letters, Home for sale, Mason Briggs. Call now. I stood in the garage, coffee mug in hand, looking through the glass window, completely calm. I'd lived in that house for 3 years. Every month, I pulled money from my account to keep it upright like a wall about to collapse. But what I was holding up wasn't brick and mortar. It was illusions, a validation that never came. That afternoon, when Dad returned and saw the sign, he froze in the yard, arms hanging by his sides, eyes wide like he couldn't believe what he was seeing. I stepped out onto the porch, set my coffee on the railing, and said calmly, "I'm selling the house." He turned, shouting, "Are you joking?" I shook my head. "No. It's already signed. The buyer is paying in full cash. In 30 days, this house won't belong to any of us. Just the new owner." His face turned red, hands trembling. I didn't wait for more reaction. I walked back inside, closed the door behind me, and went upstairs as if it were just another ordinary Saturday. 10 minutes after the for sale sign went up, Mom returned. The car door slammed loud enough to echo through the kitchen. She walked in, face pale, eyes shocked like she'd just witnessed a highway accident. Dad stood in the middle of the living room, arms on his hips, face flushed, like waiting for her to join the attack. "Harper," my mom hissed, voice cracking from anger, "have you lost your mind? You're selling the house while your parents still live here? This is our family home." I looked up from my laptop, still calmly seated on the couch. "No. It's my house. Under my name. Bought with my income. Paid in full through my bank account. This family has just been crashing here rent-free for the past 3 years. We're your blood," my dad roared, stepping forward as if to corner me. "You don't treat your own parents like this." I stood, slowly opened the document folder beside my chair, pulled out a clipped stack of papers and placed it on the coffee table in front of them. "This is a full breakdown of what I've paid for the two of you in the last 3 years. Every line has a receipt. Total, $183,460. That includes mortgage payments, utilities, mom's health insurance, dad's car maintenance, groceries, prescriptions, and even Christmas gifts I later found listed for sale on eBay." My mom froze. My dad tried to keep his voice raised. "And why are you doing this? Keeping records to throw back at your own parents." I looked him straight in the eye, my tone flat. "I did this to remind myself that my silence never meant blindness." Silence. Only the ticking of the wall clock remained. A knock on the door. It was Mallory. She walked in with grocery bags, smiling, until the tension in the room hit her like smoke. "What's going on?" Mallory asked, setting the bags on the kitchen counter. "Your sister's selling the house," my mom said dramatically. No warning. No word. Just, sold. "I'm moving to Colorado," I said clearly. "New job. New life. The house transfers in 3 weeks." "So where are mom and dad going to live?" Mallory asked, clearly stunned. "That's no longer my concern," I said. "They've had 3 years to figure that out." Mallory turned to our parents. "Is it true that you've never paid anything in 3 years?" No one answered. I pulled out another sheet and placed it on the table. "This is your daughter's tuition bill, $6,000. You said you'd cover it yourselves, remember? In truth, you forwarded the invoice to me. Begged me to help. I wired the money quietly so you wouldn't feel embarrassed. But now you deserve to know the truth." Mallory's eyes widened like she'd been slapped. I didn't know," she whispered, voice fading. "I also heard Friday's phone call," I continued, not leaving room for rebuttal. "I heard them call me a failure, a burden, the child who never should have been born." They forgot to mute their mic. My mom sank into the chair, hand over her mouth. My dad turned away, but his back tensed like forged steel. "I've never heard them say that about you," Mallory whispered. "But if they did, if that's real, then I understand why you're doing this." I looked at her, my gaze chilling. "Did you ever wonder why you were always the favorite? Why I had to step aside every time you needed something? Why my accomplishments were dismissed while a batch of cookies from you got celebrated like the 4th of July?" She said nothing. "You might have thought it was because you're sweeter, more gentle. But it's not. It's because they needed one to praise and one to exploit. I was the walking wallet. You were the sugar-coated showpiece." Mallory sat beside Mom, visibly shaken. "Are you cutting them off completely?" "No. But I'm done letting them define my worth." I bent down, picked up the folder, voice steady. After the 28th, they need to be out of here. They can stay with you if you allow it. But I'm leaving. My father turned back, face furious. You're throwing away your family over a few hurtful words? I gave a cold smile. Not a few words. 30 years. I walked upstairs, leaving behind a living room engulfed in silence. No one called after me. No one apologized. No one tried to stop me. And strangely enough, that made me feel lighter than I ever had. Denver welcomed me with blazing sunshine gliding over dark shingle rooftops, slender pines, and air so crisp it nearly stunned me. I stepped off the last stop of a cross-state journey with 2 suitcases, 1 handbag, and a signed lease for a high-rise apartment in Lodo, just a 10-minute walk from my new office. The apartment was on the 11th floor with floor-to-ceiling windows facing the Front Range, where the sunset seemed to melt into every silver-gray curve of the mountains. It was just the right size, nearly 900 square feet, with pale wooden floors, minimal furniture, and a granite-topped kitchen. Every detail made it feel less like a temporary shelter and more like a space designed for me to breathe. On my first morning, I got up at 6:30, brewed an espresso, and opened my laptop to log into the system at my new company, Sierra Equity Partners. HR had everything set up from email to task management. Monica Laird, the head of market analysis, sent a welcome message. So glad to have you on board. Everyone's excited to learn from Harper's experience. No one here knew I once carried my entire family in silence. No one saw me as a breathing ATM. That alone felt both foreign and freeing. I hung an abstract painting above my desk, deep crimson and navy blue, bought at an art market near Pearl Street. It had no title, no famous artist, but something about its chaotic composition resonated with me. That Saturday afternoon, while I was wiping down the balcony windows, my phone buzzed. A video call from Mallory. I hesitated a few seconds before tapping accept. Her face appeared, hair messy, holding the youngest who clung to her neck. You doing okay? Mallory asked, her eyes meeting mine through the screen. Holding up, I said, leaning back in my chair. The kids keep asking why they haven't seen Aunt Harper. She turned the camera to Tyler, the oldest, who waved. Are there snowy mountains where you live? Are there bears? I laughed for the first time in weeks. There's snow, no bears so far, but there's a fat squirrel that keeps climbing onto my balcony to steal walnuts. We made a plan to call each other every Sunday morning. Those calls came with no pressure. No requests. Just sharing. As if even after uprooting a rotting tree, I'd found a few green branches to place in clean water. One evening I met Gabriel, my neighbor across the hall, while we both awkwardly waited for an elevator that was running more than 10 minutes late. He wore a pine-colored knit sweater, Bluetooth earpiece, and held a pizza bag from the shop downstairs. I think this elevator likes testing people's patience, he said, his voice low and a little hoarse. Well, I might just walk all 11 flights then, I replied. We both laughed. Gabriel was a remote software engineer who'd moved from Seattle after a divorce. He liked growing herbs in small pots along the hallway, played acoustic guitar on weekends, and had a way of observing people without prying, just listening. Sometimes we'd run into each other in the lobby, share a coffee, or walk to the corner store together. No one asked too much, no one forced connection. Those short, easy conversations somehow felt warmer than any family dinner I'd ever had. One Sunday night I was steeping tea when my phone buzzed. A message from Mom. Just a single line. Your father's in the hospital for chest pain. Call if you can. I stared at the screen for a long time. I didn't call. Didn't reply. I didn't turn off my phone either, just placed it face down on the table. The tea still steamed in my hands. I inhaled the scent of ginger and licorice, letting the warmth settle in my chest. This time I didn't need to rush back to fix something I didn't break. Outside on the balcony, a light breeze moved through the faux lavender fence I'd just hung, brushing against the wind chimes, which rang out a soft tinkling sound, like a reminder that some things, no matter how expected, are better left behind. Not out of hatred, but love for a self that was never chosen first. I leaned back in my chair, watching the silhouette of the mountains slowly shift into deep violet. Everything in this apartment had been chosen by me. Every lamp, every bedsheet, every crooked picture frame. On December 3rd, I received a handwritten letter, mailed from Mallory's address, but in my mother's handwriting. The paper was thick, cream-colored, scented with the old perfume she used to wear on holidays. The first line read, "Harper, my daughter, I'm writing not to blame you." I folded the letter before reading further. Placed it on the kitchen counter. Not ripped, not burned, just there like a neutral object. Maybe I'd read it someday. Or maybe never. I was still seeing my therapist, Dr. Rachel Whitmore, every Thursday. We talked less about people from the past, more about how I felt now. About letting go of the need to be responsible for others' emotional chaos. "Forgiveness doesn't have to come with reopening the door," she said one snowy afternoon as flakes drifted past her office window. "It's an inner act, not a social obligation." I nodded. The guilt was fading, not gone, but no longer a weight pressing on my chest every time I saw my father's number light up my screen. The last call was just last week. I let it ring 7 times before voicemail picked up. Then came the text, "Your dad can't afford his medication. If you still have any sense of duty, maybe think about that." No, please. No check-in. I didn't reply. Didn't block the number either. I've learned to let distance speak on my behalf. Mallory sent a photo of the kids making Christmas cards with colored paper. Tyler made one shaped like a reindeer, its googly eyes uneven with a scribbled note. "Aunt Harper, is it colder where you live now?" I snapped a picture of the snow-covered balcony and sent a short video of the fat squirrel trying to haul a walnut bigger than its head. These exchanges felt like touching a part of memory left unharmed, soft, real, and without demand. I started preparing for Christmas in the second week of the month. Nothing extravagant, just a 5-foot tree by the window, decorated with small wooden baubles, soft yellow string lights, and a few handmade items I'd picked up at a street market. I wrapped gifts by hand, carefully choosing small presents for each of my new friends. Gabriel knocked on my apartment door on the afternoon of December 23rd. He brought a box of wine and a small white ceramic Christmas tree. "I wasn't sure you had space for anything else, so I picked one that doesn't need lights," he said as I opened the door. "It glows on its own, stands on its own. Symbolic." I smiled and set the gift on the kitchen counter. "Are you staying in Denver for the holidays?" "Probably. My parents want me to come back to Portland, but I'm not ready." Some dinners come with all the recycled questions like, "Why are you still single?" Sounds familiar. I poured 2 glasses of wine and handed him one. "Then stay here. No boiled carrots, no pressure. Just butter cookies and a Christmas jazz playlist good enough to drown out the past." We clinked glasses. The lights from the tree reflected in the glass, making the small kitchen feel just a little warmer. That night, as I checked the mailbox, I found another envelope, this time from my father. No letter inside, just a copy of a hospital bill stamped in red italics, unpaid. A handwritten note at the bottom read, "You may have left, but blood ties don't vanish." I folded it carefully and placed it in the bottom drawer of my filing cabinet. That drawer used to hold contracts I regretted signing. Now it was where I kept the attempts at manipulation I no longer responded to. On Christmas morning, snow fell softly. I opened my door to welcome friends. 4 from my hiking group, 2 new coworkers, and Gabriel with a batch of waffles made from his grandmother's recipe. No one talked about parents. No one asked why I lived alone. We made breakfast together, decorated cookies, played a white elephant gift game. It was simple. Didn't need to be perfect. No one expected me to play savior or flawless host. I was just Harper. That was enough. That evening, after everyone had gone, I pulled a small box from under the tree, wrapped in brown paper and tied with a sea blue ribbon. Gabriel rested his hand on my shoulder as I handed it to him. Inside was a brass pocket compass engraved on the back with the words, "For the one no longer afraid to lose their way." He stood silently for a moment, then smiled, a look of surprise and softness. "I don't think anyone's ever given me something this meaningful." "Sometimes all we need is direction," I said, "not a destination." When he left, I stood on the balcony with a mug of hot cocoa, watching the snow blanket the street below. In my coat pocket was a second compass, the one I had bought for myself. It didn't point toward my parents. It didn't aim for the places I once endured. It simply turned toward the direction I'd chosen, with hands that no longer trembled. Harper's story isn't just about walking away from a toxic family, it's about the quiet courage of rebuilding from the inside out. From someone who lived to please others, she learned to live for herself, not in anger but in awareness. She doesn't seek forgiveness or approval from those who never truly saw her worth. In real life, Harper represents those who are quietly stepping away from the role of the sacrificial child, choosing instead a life built on boundaries, self-respect, and inner peace. What do you think of Harper's choices? Was she too harsh, or was it necessary to reclaim her sense of self? Share your thoughts in the comments and don't forget to follow the channel for more heartfelt family stories.